solutions by the thousands of lines. And Edwin is, again, another long-standing Atlassian guy. I think, what's 5 years for you too?
4 years.
4 years.
4
Okay.
years.
He was on the DevTools team for a number of years and switched into the JIRA product management role a while back. So in terms of vision, roadmap, and seeing the big picture, Edwin's our guy in this conversation. And Nick Muldoon, to my far right, is also a new addition to our product management team, who's been in the company for a little over 2 years now.
Yep.
And came from the sales engineering side, so probably talked to a lot of you guys on the phone as you're evaluating. And now he's our greenhopper specialist in the product management side. So I think we got some pretty good coverage across the product portfolio, and hopefully we'll get another guy who can maybe grant too much less. So, with that, let's see this and kind of keep the momentum of our State of the Unions yesterday, and it's an open forum for all your questions. Who wants to be the first? Okay, in the front row.
Hi, I'm Fariba from University of Southern California. We are using Confluence for a while, and what we have done, we have shibboleth for authentication. I don't know if you're familiar. It's like your crowd, and that's the way we get the users and the groups. What we are doing now, we are installing JIRA, and for the user migration, we want to make it automatic. And I've seen that in your configuration file, we can have users, if they are not there already, can be logged in, and when they log in, they can automatically go to the JIRA user group. I'm wondering if you have the same type of configuration as Confluence, that you can, in Confluence, you can define the groups, and then when the user gets added in and has that user that has group in it as all the groups that user belong to, if it's not already, if the user is not already added to those groups, it's going to automatically add it. Do you have that feature in Jira?
Nick, do you want to take that?
Okay.
Very confusing.
It's a bit of a long question. I think, so you were asking whether it's possible to set up default groups that the new users will belong to?
Yeah, the users, when they have that, when they come in from Shibboleth, Jira will know that this user name is something, and then if this user belongs to like 5 groups. And Jira checks it and see if that person is not already, if that username is not already in those groups, would add it.
No, I think unfortunately we don't have that functionality at the moment. It's all new users will belong to a specific group called the JIRA user group, as you said. And yeah, I think this case is quite, I guess, specific to you. So
well, because
it doesn't.
We did, we're going to set up the groups in
Yep.
Jira, and we want, we don't want to keep adding. We want to make it automatic, so we don't have to add, this is an administrative work for us.
Yep.
Just to add people to the certain groups and whatever.
Yeah. We don't actually have that. Yeah, we don't actually have that functionality, but there are a few places in Jira that you could write a plugin for. Or we do throw a certain create user event or something at that point. So there it is. Jira does have the facility to plug in at that point, but we currently don't have any functionality like that.
But what's the plugin? I mean,
No, there's a plugin point, and there is no actual plugin. So you could write your own plugin or talk with a partner to organize something around that.
Okay, we're going to move on to another question.
I would like to tag along with her question. Life in Confluence is much easier as compared to Jira for user and group management when integrating with LDAP. It's a pain in Jira. We need to go and add every user. Are you guys doing something to solve that?
This is actually a good question to ask, because this is one where I can say yes. Actually, there are not that many I can say yes to, but this one I can, because we're already working on a solution to properly integrate Jira with your LDAP solution. So it's going to be based on elements we take from our crowd product. And that project's actually been going on now for a few months, and it's still going. I mean, we haven't showed it yet in any of the product releases because it's not ready, but that doesn't mean it's not coming. We're just working on it, but it's just taking a little bit longer. So.
That does not mean that I need to have crowd, right?
No, that does not mean you know that.
Internally, it's referred to as embedded crowd, so you'll get a lot of that same functionality within JIRA. And yeah, we've had 2 guys working on it for quite a few months now.
What Confluence is doing?
Yep.
Make it similar to that?
Definitely,
Or is something-
definitely.
Yeah.
So-
It's one of these projects that we do have. It's sort of being run in the crowd team, but we seconded 2 people from the JIRA team and 2 people from the Confluence team, and they're all working together to give a sort of a unified experience across the products.
Another question?
I have a couple questions, but I'll just ask one. The OS workflow framework supports the concept of having a global transition that exists on every state, but that's not something that we can do within JIRA, at least through the default workflow editor. I know Minya lets you do that, and if you're editing your workflows in pure XML, you can do that. Is there any plans to bring that into JIRA proper? Because with the complicated workflow with, say, 15 states on it, having to add the same transitions over and over with the same conditions and validators is a lot of work.
Sure. So to repeat, I think the question was, do we have any plans to add the global?
When are we going to make workflows not suck?
Well, put it that way, definitely. All right. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for the help there. I was trying to be diplomatic, but. So as you saw in our plans, in our talks yesterday, in the State of Unions and in the keynotes, our focus so far has been more on the experience on working with issues. So that's definitely been our priority to date and will be for a little while moving forward. Beyond there, the experience would definitely be with administration and definitely with workflow. We all understand it's a huge pain point. Now, I can't promise to you when exactly that will happen. I'd love to come back next year and say, it's all done, we have a brand new workflow thing, but as I said, I can't say yes to too much, eh?
But you did mention, is it Minya? I think that's the plugin, the Flash plugin for workflow development. Yeah, I've seen that in demonstrations, and that really looks nice and solves a lot of the problems there.
There's also the SysBliss plugin as well around automating the workflow, which is another partner opportunity. And I think they're going to be presenting at the must-have plugins worth consideration. Alrighty, another question.
Hello, this is Shankar. I'm with Motorola. We actually use JIRA for a business process workflow system. And for us, the big thing is we have a lot of custom fields. We create a lot of custom fields. And recently, we started feeling the need for tabular fields. So fields that actually show up as tables where you can actually input certain specific columns and fields. So the question is, do you have anything on your roadmap to support that, to enhance the custom capabilities that you have for various fields in JIRA?
Did you talk about?
Currently, we don't have any sort of direct plans to address that, but we are, with all the, I guess, the front-end changes we're making, we are seeing a lot of changes in the Fields API and the Custom Fields API. We're trying to make it backwards compatible, and when we break it, we'll most probably just break it really good, just once. But for the time being, we're trying to keep backwards compatible, and so yeah, unfortunately at the moment we don't have any direct plans to have tabular custom fields, I guess. So.
File an issue and get friends to vote on it. Find some, some people out of create a user group. It'll work.
Hi, I have a unique situation. We actually use.
We've got partners for that.
We actually use a separate support ticketing system outside of JIRA. So we have a support team, and then we have a different support team. The thing is that we use LDAP for authentication, and anytime a user needs to have an account, it needs to go through some kind of approval process, and the problem is that we want to have a user be able to request an account using JIRA, and the way I've kind of done the workaround is allowing them to just creating an anonymous project, viewable by all, and they create a ticket there, and it gets sent to that other ticketing system. It's kind of weird, but my question is that for inside of JIRA, you have the CAPTCHA field. Now, I wanted to use that CAPTCHA field for my my own little create user ticket. Is there anything in the future to bring that CAPTCHA field as a field for tickets, I guess, issues?
Actually, no, this is the first time we've really heard of.
I just started staring off into space, going, "Oh, that's an interesting idea." Having that, just having the capture as a sort of a custom field that you can be placed on any form, and that needs to be validated in order for that form to be submitted. That's quite an interesting idea.
Interesting. Yeah.
My name's Carl Myers. My question is mostly about, again, an inconsistency between JIRA and some other of your applications.
Can I just say we were first?
Yeah. I know, and I'm sure that's part of why this is the case. I know that I've talked with some of you before about how the cache situation is a big problem. Do we know roughly when there's going to be a flush cache button without restarting JIRA? And could you maybe talk about some of the technical problems, why that's so hard to fix?
This is actually quite an interesting question. I actually got, I would say, sat down, or more appropriately, cornered into a conversation yesterday with a couple of the SourceSense guys who have actually gone and implemented a cache manager in JIRA and put a patch on top of JIRA for this. And I was in talks with them yesterday to try and get that back into JIRA. Internally, we have, I guess in the last couple of months, gone through the process of identifying all the caches we have in JIRA and annotating them so we do have access to them now. It's not as good as a cache manager, but it's something, it's one of those things every developer wants to do and not a single product manager wants to do. So it's a bit of a battle between us at the moment. But if you ask a developer, are we going to do that? I'd love to do that. But yeah, it's just a matter of getting that onto the roadmap, I think. So.
Hey, here's another question.
I just want to know whether you have heard of this situation before. We have a task that somebody would submit, and it's got to spawn 2 other tasks, but it can't happen until the one task is done. So we were trying with workflow, but we just wanted more of an automated process. And we're new to JIRA, so I don't know whether there's something out there that you know of. Basically, triggers another ticket, because 2 things can happen. One thing has to happen, and then 2 things can happen simultaneously.
So I think just to paraphrase what you meant there, you'd like to have, when 2 tickets are done, that automatically a 3rd ticket gets generated? Is that
When one ticket is submitted,
right. I mean, certainly out of the box, JIRA doesn't have the functionality, but I'm not sure if there's any plugins there that...
Yeah, I was just about to suggest that. Yeah, I've seen systems where when you create an issue, it automatically creates a few subtasks. So yeah, maybe that could do.
Can you tell which plugin is that? It's called Create Subtask on Transition. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's on the plugin exchange. We've used it since day one. We couldn't do our workflows without it.
It's made it really difficult. We're gonna get Sharif's gonna validate that. He's on the plugins exchange right now. We'll get back and list that up for y'all in a second. New question?
Hi, we're looking for some guidelines on how to size JIRA implementations, specifically how the database and the local caches relate. You don't have to tell me this now, but I was wondering, are there resources where we can find this information? How big of a local disk should we have in comparison to how big of a database store should we plan for? Particularly with your leucine indexes.
I think, this, I think as Matt Dorr and a few other partners know, each case is quite unique, and it's just like the hardware you have and all that kind of stuff and the distribution of your users and things like that. So it's really hard to give general guidelines. And I know a lot of customers have found it frustrating that we don't say JIRA does this, and because it's really hard to just give a general kind of answer to that question. And so yeah, it's most probably best off emailing support or getting in contact with support and sort of going through your configuration and your requirements with them.
Yeah, definitely. I think just to add Nick's points, it's like how long is a piece of string. Like it's like kind of like depends on the configuration, whether you have lots of issues or lots of different projects and how you set it up. So I think that there's a lot of variances there to make it difficult to give a generalistic kind of guideline, unfortunately.
All right, your question.
So I'm the system administrator for our company, and I don't want to give like 50 people JIRA admin rights so that they can go in like.
Is this a project administrator question?
You mean permissions? Yes. I guess the question is when, or is there a plan to allow permissions based on a permission scheme to do things like edit a workflow or edit a notification scheme? Or create them. Because it's taking up so much time for me to have to go and like sit in a meeting to like explain, okay, this is how it works, and then draw it out on a whiteboard, and then come back and put it in the system, and then have them say, "Oh, that's not what I was talking about," and then have to go back and change it again.
As you can see, everyone feels this pain. I think the complication there lies is that the schemes are designed to be shared across projects, and so it's really hard to say this project administrator can edit this workflow, but unfortunately it's shared with 5 other projects where they don't have permission.
Well, that's why the administrator would simply give that user permission.
Yeah.
I trust them to be able to.
So I think that problem will not be addressed until we address the administration section as a whole, and sort of, I think I've got a couple of ideas on how we can improve the administration section, and like I'd love to get rid of schemes. I don't want users to know there's such a thing as a scheme in JIRA, and it's kind of a transparent thing there. And once we can do that, I think we'll be able to move towards giving I think we refer to it as project administrators, people who can just edit things to do with that project in the administration.
A separate workflow builder or something outside of the system admin side, so they can go build their workflow and give it to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea as well.
Another question?
Another administration question?
Yep.
Is there any scriptable way to associate a project with workflow, issue type, some of the things that are currently not possible? Like using JIRA, Jelly, or anything else. Like the association of a project with a workflow, it has to be done manually. Similarly, few other like issue type schemes, all those things have to be done manually. In our case, we have hundreds of projects. They come in bursts, like, and the workflow remains the same. But when I want to associate them, going through all the 100 projects and associating them manually is a big trouble, and I don't see anywhere no JIRA Jelly available, no handle available, either in Groovy or anywhere else. So
I think you want a project workflow scheme. But I don't think we're going to introduce that soon. But we do have scripting via Jelly. I personally don't recommend that. I'm not sure of any other. Can you think of any other way to automate some project administration?
Even the CLI interface plugin that is available, the command line.
Yep.
Even that doesn't have that.
Okay.
All the schemes that can be associated on the main page, which you currently have, the only ones which are opened up in any interface. There are 2 or 3 other schemes which are really painful when you have to update like 200 projects.
I can understand that'd be really painful.
I've done this through the SOAP API before, but it's not open at the moment. It's still just private.
Okay. So I think you would be best off, as our Palm expert here said, you could write a JSP that does this. It's a little bit of a hack, but you could do it that way. On that, we do have 2 guys currently, for the first time ever, working full time on our REST API, and we are like in continual development of that. All new features have a good REST API, and from 4.2 onwards, you'll start seeing a lot of improvements. Not only in terms of data you're going to be able to get, but ways you're going to be able to manipulate the system itself. So things like that, hopefully we'll introduce into the REST API.
Right, I'm going to shift off to one more question right here.
Yeah, actually, just as a comment first about that. I mean, you have an existing REST API, which I've used. I mean, a REST interface where you can provide the user and password, and if you know what parameters you got to pass to a screen, you can just do it. So I've used that a lot.
Is that the REST or the SOAP API?
No, the REST. I mean, essentially, you can do any URL, you know. So
Oh,
you
okay.
can figure out what the
Yeah,
parameters
okay,
or
yep.
what the message can be sent. You can do that.
Yep.
My question actually is, as a plugin developer, I noticed with 4.2 with your operations, that a lot of your operations are now available on other screens as a pop-up.
Yep.
I assume you're not using WebWork for that anymore, so we're going to have to do some additional. Do you have documentation? Are you going to provide documentation to how to go about do that?
So what exactly are you trying to do?
Essentially, I mean, we have our own issue operations which have
Yep.
parameters or screens,
Right,
or a
right.
screen, you know, that it presents, and so I use WebWork to do that. So will this automatically happen, or will I have to go recode that, or do you?
Yeah, I think we're talking about in the keynote yesterday, you saw a lot of
Yeah,
the
the 4.2.
JIRA screens coming up in dialogues in the issue navigator, in the issue screen. And we do, when I started with Atlassian, we were Java developers, full stop. And all interactivity, all the JavaScript we wrote was Java developers writing JavaScript. We now have dedicated JavaScript guys writing APIs and writing sort of frameworks for us. And the dialogues is one of the new ones coming in 4.2, and we will be documenting that, and we will show users how to do that. But it's interesting, those dialogues are actually still backed by WebWork. It's pulling in the HTML via that way. But yeah, remind me when we get home that we have to write documentation for that.
Righty. Well, we're running in close to the top of the hour, so there's going to be one or two more questions, and then folks will be able to take it out in the hallway as the Confluence crew is going to come up on the hot seat.
Well, I've got a couple of you together. I want to ask this question. I think custom fields are just fantastic. It's like the best feature of JIRA, in my opinion. What do you think about taking all the system, from a development standpoint, taking all the system fields and just making them custom fields? Like summary is basically just a text field, and description's a text area. Yeah, they're like separate animals. Every time you go to code something, you're like, oh, but then there's also the description field.
As a developer, I don't like having to deal with two different sort of concepts within the product, and it would be nice to just have a field concept. It's really, really embedded in JIRA from day one with these two different concepts. So it is something that's hard, really hard to unify. As I said, we're doing a lot of fields work at the moment, and hopefully going to be able to provide some really cool stuff in the near future. And part of that is unifying some of the APIs on the fields that I don't think we will ever get to a stage where you can just refer to something as a field. It'll either be a system field or a custom field. But yeah, we are trying to unify the APIs and sort of give a sort of common feel across both of them. And yeah, it would be nice to be able to, I guess, have any field in of the system field type as a custom field. So yeah.
Good. We're going to run into the last question.
Can someone ask Nick Muldoon a question about Greenhopper? I'm feeling bad.
Hi, my name is Tahir. I'm with a small startup called Bugbox here in the Valley. I have a question about the JIRA REST API. Is that going to be just for the new features, or is it going to be a superset of the existing SOAP API?
That's a really good question. That is definitely a very good question. So the approach we've taken with the REST API is to begin by focusing on areas that aren't well addressed in the current remote APIs, right? So what I mean by that is, for example, some of the workflow things, some of the fields, information aren't quite there, right? So we'd address those first so that we'll get better coverage across our remote APIs. Moving forward, our long-term away kind of goal is to be able to drop all the other remote APIs and have one REST API as the only kind of remote API. But that's a long way away.
I got an observation on that. If the API isn't documented, it doesn't exist.
That's correct.
So
we need another doc sprint for you, then. Come on.
There have been REST APIs that the gadgets have been using since 4.0, but we still haven't had any documentation about those APIs that have existed since 4.0.
Those APIs, we've actually moved in 4.2 to internal subdirectory So that they were never meant to be publicly consumed.
That's fine, but where should plugin developers develop their own REST API?
Yep.
Where should it go?
There's been quite a few debates on how to document REST APIs. Internally, we've had some fierce debates, and yeah, I don't think the new stuff we're developing, you won't have to worry. We are very committed to the documentation. Because it's pointless writing a REST API without documentation for public consumption. It's useless.
You can assume part of the delivery of the API is how they use the API. Yeah. That's definitely part of it.
Somehow I have a feeling that this question and answer session could take up the entire hour and a half. But unfortunately, we're here at the top of the hour. If folks are willing, well, first off, before I say anything else, a big round of applause for Nick, Edwin, and Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah.